Let's try to get to the breaks on time. When we come back, Marilyn's in the queue to talk about wind energy. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Marilyn, you're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you. How about you?
Oh, good, thank you. Good. I just want to start by thanking you for having an open forum for the people all over Newfoundland who can call in and speak about, whatever they're passionate about in their area. So thank you so much for that. I just want to start by saying, you just announced how you can pick up the copies of the amended EIS from World Energy GH2 in Stephenville. Mm-hmm. I went in there on the 31st, and, I asked Mr. Hogan for a copy, and he said he's expecting some to arrive from St. John's today, and that he would be in touch, or someone would be in touch with me to get a copy out to me or to have it picked up. So I went on my business, and he emailed me 2:07 that day. I went in around probably around 1 o'clock. He emailed me at 2:07 p.m., and I can send you the email chain. He said, "Hello, Marilyn. Thanks for stopping in today and requesting a copy of the World Energy GH2 EIS amendment document as submitted to the provincial government on January 30th. I indicated that we will be in receipt of these hard copies on Friday. Unfortunately, we only have enough for distribution to the regional libraries. Until such time that we arrange to have another copy sent out, I invite you to visit the department's website at blah, blah, blah. I will advise upon receipt." So I said, thank you for letting me know. Any idea of the timeline for receipt of my requested copy? As you can imagine, viewing this online is very difficult, especially when poor internet service in our area. And I said, will World Energy GH2 be having public meetings on the Port-au-Port Peninsula to discuss concerns or answer questions in regards to the amendments? And then he came back and said, I'm going to redirect this inquiry over to our community engagement manager, Angela Gill. She will be able to provide details on any public information sessions being planned. And then she came back yesterday and said, "Hi, Marilyn. Yes, we have public information sessions planned on February 12th, 12 to 5 p.m., and February 13th, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Community Office, 13 Tennessee Drive, Stephenville. Please feel free to drop by then. Members of the World Energy GH2 management team will be available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you." Now, I haven't responded yet, and this has been the same kind of rigmarole that we've been dealing with from day one. It's always skirting around the question that we ask, and we never get a definite answer. Yes, they're going to have public sessions in Stephenville, but that's, where people are mostly in support of this project. When it comes to people on the peninsula, we feel more comfortable being on our own ground and having people that can get more involved in the conversation because it's passionate to us, because we're going to be living in this nightmare if this project ever proceeds ahead. Again, nothing about the copy of what I requested. No timeline, and she didn't even address it in her email. So I don't even know when we'll receive a copy, but I just wanted to let people know that if you're going in there expecting a copy of this new amendment, that you're going to be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, let me just give out the list as was supplied to me. Now, if we're talking about the don't have enough printed copies, certainly inside even government's operations, they have their own printing department, so printing should not be an issue here. So they say They're going to be available at the public libraries, Bay St. George South, Cape St. George, Lourdes, St. George's, Stephenville Crossing, Upper Ferry, Calgary Valley, and also at the offices of World Energy GH2. So if that has been the pledge, then let's make sure that everybody who wants a copy can get a copy. Simple.
Exactly. That should be the least of our worries is accessing a copy. And I mean, when you look at the libraries, I think Cape St. George is open from, 5 to 7 or, some like minuscule time in the evening. So, I mean, that's supper time for most people. So it's very difficult to sit there and review such a massive document. I think the new amendment is, and some people who have said that there was a lot of cut and paste, but I don't know. I haven't got there yet. But I received a map yesterday of turbine placement, and
Marilynn, our connection is breaking up, so make a move 6 feet one way or the other, see if we can get clearing it up.
Can you hear?
No, still breaking up. Try again.
Okay, how about now?
That's good.
Okay, when I went in to see Mr. Hogan, first of all, the door was locked, and security had to let me in. And the only reason is because I said I was going in to pick up something. So they didn't expect me. And there was two gentlemen. There was John Hogan and another gentleman I don't know, and I never met him before. So, you know, it's not an open door policy when you go in there. But when I received it yesterday, you know, I think there's 155 turbines now instead of the 164. And then there's going to be some on Pine Tree Hill, which is, you know, right adjacent to the Port of Port Peninsula. And Hogan said that they're going to be the 656 or 654 foot turbines being placed here. So they are the massive turbines. And he said, oh, yeah, I heard that on the radio this morning, too. He said, but you can't believe everything you hear. And I just started to laugh because, you know, it's no use talking to these people about alternatives. And I just wanted to voice my concern about the lack of, you know, EIS amendment copies and the fact that, you know, this is a massive project and we're only on a small peninsula. We have nowhere to go. The animals have nowhere to go. So we, you know, will be living with this nightmare if this ever goes to pass. And, you know, it's the vibration, it's the shadow flicker, it's the relentless construction for 2 years, the dust from the mines, the dust from, you know, the construction. Our roads are horrible. Our water, you know, is depleting from mining. You know, the noise, the lights on these turbines, you know, you can imagine 155 turbines with red lights on them blinking at night. You know, we had a meeting yesterday, and one of the gentlemen there said, like in mainland on that side, where the turbines are going to be placed, they're going to be exposed to shadow flicker all day. And he said it could be like a strobing light all day because when the sun hits those blades and they're rotating at different times, it'll be like a strobe light effect. So anybody that has any issues with what do you call that, vertigo, or, you know, are susceptible to
epilepsy,
you know,
whatever.
Epilepsy, yes. Thank you very much, Patty. I wasn't prepared to call in today, so I'm not really prepared for all this. But I just wanted to say that, you know, this is going to be going to have a massive impact on the people here on the Port of Port Peninsula, and that is very scary to us, and it has been from day one, and it will continue to be a very harsh threat to our lives and our homes.
The Cape St. George Library hours, as per someone at the library, are 3 to 7 on Tuesday, Thursday, and 3 to 6 on Friday. So a little bit more time and not all supper hours. That was just a piece of info that someone asked me to pass along. Okay.
Yeah.
How do we, or is it possible for us to strike some sort of balance between environmental protection and economic activity? Because for folks in the area who are all for this project, they, of course, will be leaning on the opportunity to get a job and for what it means for economic activity in the region. So how do you consider that potential economic upside with environmental protections, or do you think you can?
Well, I think we can. I mean, if they came in and said, okay, we're going to, you know, put 30, like down the center of the Port of Port Peninsula and away from people's homes and, you know, the watersheds, then fine. I think we could, you know, make some kind of deal that way. But when you are putting 155 of these massive turbines that haven't been done before on mountaintops, then no, absolutely not. No job is worth that, because after the initial, you know, couple of years of construction, there'll be no more jobs in this area except for a few experienced people who will be working on the wind turbines themselves. So if the job was, you know, down in central, or if it was western or northern or southern, I mean, if it's in an area that is safe for the people that are living there, then the people will travel for that work. But, you know, just for a few jobs, and after a few years, and when people can't live here anymore, I mean, really, if you have a half a dozen on one and 6 on the other, it just doesn't make sense to me. You're going to have this boom, and then it's going to be a bust, and it's going to be a big bust, and that's my feeling. But if they came in and went down the center of her, and everybody, was respectful of the environment and the people that live here, then fine, we could work with something like that. But I don't know, if that's feasible for this company.
It certainly wouldn't satisfy their business model. That much we know for sure. But that's neither here nor there. It's not my business model. I appreciate making time for the show, Marilynn. Would you like to say anything else?
No, that's it, Patty. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Appreciate your time.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And before we go, there are still lots of things yet to be fully understood. There's no provincial money, but there's the possibility for tons of federal dollars there, right? The range in subsidies is between 15% of operating capital costs and 40%. So that's all going to boil down to the final definition of what constitutes green hydrogen. So we do know that in this province, about 80% of the power generated that World Energy GH2 would have access to is renewables. Very much unlike the province of Nova Scotia, for instance. So there's going to have to be some pretty clear and tight definitions associated with that, because we're talking about substantial money. In the United States, they have very strict definitions of what constitutes green versus grey-ish. Like in Nova Scotia, about 51% of the power is about coal or coke-fired. Very much unlike here. And so no final investment decisions will be made until the federal government figures that much out. Then you talk about how green things really are. Because, yes, there's lots of different components that goes into making a wind turbine. Steel, copper, aluminum, there's a bunch of other precious metals, some recyclable plastics. And it's the thought that when wind farms became something, that after the lifespan, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 years-ish, I think, for a wind turbine, a blade. So what happened was they would simply bury them, which is not very green. So now some 96% of the components of a wind turbine are from recyclable materials. So whether it be outer shell, the shafts, the gears, all the electrical components. So they're doing more and more to find out ways to recycle the turbines versus simply bury them, which is obviously not ideal. So there's a lot left to be understood there. But we are in the throes, when we talk about the Port-au-Port Peninsula, inside that 70-day window to see what's next. I can't presuppose the outcome, but I suppose what we all can do is sort of read between the lines a little bit. Leaders in the area, the provincial government, seems really quite bullish on these opportunities or these proposals. So whether it be the four the province has put forward and versus what's happening at the Port of Argentia with Pattern Energy, it's not me saying it. The province signed on to an MOU. There's been lots of big business leaders that made their way to this province. There's been a contingent made its way to Germany. There's still some concerns about the eventual cost of green versus other hydrogen options, of which there are many. We had a great conversation with a petrophysicist here on the show the other day, Denis Briere, in their quest to discover more natural or white hydrogen. So there's a lot left to be fully understood. Now, there's folks who are all in. That's it. They think this is the next big opportunity in this world for a so-called transition fuel. And then folks like Marilynn, who their strict focus is on the environment. And you want to take that on? We can do it. We said yesterday that there's a report coming out from the Public Utilities Board talking about the two rate applications they're looking at from Newfoundland Power. One for 1.5% rate increase this July, another 5.5% next July. But the pub, here's the quote: full recovery of Newfoundland Power's costs, including forecast supply costs, could result in a significantly higher increase in customer rates than the 5.5% indicated in the application. So says the PUB. To take that on, or whatever else we could talk about, is the province's consumer advocate, Dennis Brown. He's after this. Don't go away.
Start your day off right. Get the latest updates on news, traffic, and weather conditions, plus interviews with today's newsmakers. Your go-to source before you get on the go. 5:30 to 9 a.m. weekdays. Your VOCM mornings.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the province's consumer advocate. That's Dennis Brown. Good morning, Dennis. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
It was just yesterday the Public Utilities Board met to schedule the procedures for the application process, yet they got out in front of it with a public press release saying exactly what I read before the news. Full recovery of Newfoundland Power's costs, including forecast supply costs, could result in a significantly higher increase in consumer rates than the 5.5% indicated in the application. Is this normal procedure?
The Public Utilities Board has rarely done press releases or media briefings of any kind, so this is different, yes.
Okay, so what do you make of it? Because this really feels like cart in front of the horse.
Well, we have to look at what's going on here. Newfoundland Power has an application for the board effective July 1, 2024, this year, where they're looking for a 1.5% increase. They have that out there first and foremost. That's before we even deal with their rate of return. They're looking for an increase in their rate of return from 8.5% to 9.85%. Now, 8.5% is quite good, and it's been very effective for them because it's gotten them in profit about $47 million in this year. That's profit alone to their shareholder. But they're looking to increase the rate of return to 9.85, and that will increase their profits by, from what we can tell, at least another $9 million annually. So they're looking to increase their profits in this application from $47 million to over $55 million. Now, the likelihood of the board, or any board, giving them a 9.85% return is pretty remote. If you look at the bank, what you get, or anybody gets, if they got some savings, you get 3%. And they're looking for 9.85%. So I don't think any board in the country will give Newfoundland Power that. Newfoundland Power has a monopoly in this jurisdiction, and quite often nationally, other companies like Newfoundland Power are competing with propane and other forms of heat and other companies. But here they have an absolute monopoly. So we've given notice that we're opposing all of these increases. Newfoundland Power is doing nothing to control its own costs or its own operations. Its operational costs have increased dramatically. And the board has given them free rein over capital spending. Their capital spending has increased dramatically over the last 10 years, and the board won't even hold a hearing on it, despite constant requests from consumer advocates, this one and the previous one. So the board has some explaining to do at some point as to why they've operated in this particular fashion.
Help people understand, for instance, the president of Newfoundland Power is Gary Murray. He says they need the increase because the company's replacing aging infrastructure, assets to better handle storms. Because if we think back to Liberty Consulting and the work they did regarding Dardanelle, it was pretty much an issue regarding not keeping up the infrastructure concerns. And so consequently, we had rolling blackouts and brownouts for quite a long time, some people without power for a week. So how do we square that circle with the need to keep the grid reliable versus any potential rate increase to cover costs? How do we address that?
Well, we paid for that. We've already paid for the infrastructure. We're paying for that in our rates already. That's for their capital expenditure. So that's done. What they are looking for now is an increase in their rate of return. They're looking for more profit. So that's what they're up to right now. The ratepayers of the province every year pay for infrastructure. So it's probably less than accurate for Newfoundland Power to be saying that these applications are about infrastructure, because they are not.
Okay, so let's move on to another topic, unless you have something more to say about that.
No, I think that the ratepayers understand fully the implications of this. Right now, we are paying 13.2 cents for a kilowatt. And in July every year, there's always an adjustment for the oil we're burning at Holyrood, because we're still burning oil. And given the price of oil, sometimes that adjustment goes up, sometimes it goes down. But Newfoundland Power is now getting into that area, that July 1. July 1 was always about fuel and the costing of fuel, and us paying for the fuel that we burned over the past winter at Holyrood. Now they're into looking for money for more costs for themselves, and it looks like even a little bit of profit, that 1.5% they're looking for. All this has to be dealt with by the board in no uncertain terms, because we're not yet paying for Muskrat Falls. The cost of Muskrat Falls, the government is on record as saying that a kilowatt should go no greater than 15 cents. Well, we're at 13.2 cents already. We got Newfoundland Power coming in with these exaggerated applications, because I think the idea that they would seek 9.85% is an unreasonable expectation. Also, we're not getting complete disclosure. Newfoundland Power sends out a press release. They got this soft sell saying, that's only going to cost you another $1.50 a month, and et cetera, et cetera. But they don't tell people what they are looking for the money for. They should put it down, the cost, and tell people, say, by the way, this 9.85, that will give us another $9 million in profit. That's what this is all about. They should have to state that. And this time, before the board, we will be looking for a board order so that in the future there is complete disclosure when Newfoundland Power looks for a rate increase, or Hydro for that matter. They'll have to tell us completely what the money is, how much money they're looking for, and not hide away with all these vague percentages, which no one really can quite understand.
Yeah, and you mentioned the July 1st rate changes regarding the amount of fuel consumed. That's the rate stabilization program. There has been some fluctuations and even a little bit of return there a few years ago on that plan because the cost of fuel was lower than forecasted. But
that's true.
That's neither here nor there, I suppose. I know that this is not necessarily directly a provincial matter, but it might be. With the Nova Scotia government having to pick up some of the slack on behalf of Nova Scotia Power and Emera, some $117 million. And part of that news story includes that they did not receive the expected amount of energy from Muskrat Falls. So, two questions. Do we understand what the shortfall is in our contractual obligation to Emera on the other side? And two, is there a pending legal concern here? Because the government of Nova Scotia is not just going to shrug their shoulders and say, oh, well, that's okay, $117 million, here you go. So how do we read the implications of that news story?
Well, under the agreement between what was then Nalcor and Nova Scotia Power, if Muskrat Falls Power was not delivered on time to Nova Scotia, then and for reasons that we have here, the problems we're having with construction and the problems we're having of getting the power down consistently. Nova Scotia will pick up that at the end of the contract. So the contract, if the contract didn't kick in on time, the contract, I think it's a 35-year contract, will all be long gone by then, Patty. But by the time it all comes to fruition, if there's a few years owing, but going on that end of it. Now, there may be other issues when you're dealing with contracts and lawyers, and there's always a way to be found, I guess. But our kickback or our takeoff on that will be: look, you have the right at the end of the contract to make up that deficiency that you have right now.
Yeah. Because there's a percentage of what the firm output they call 824, even though it won't generate 824 of actual firm output. So maybe over the course of 35 years, if we owe them 22%, maybe it could be 23.5%. So we don't have big financial implications at the end of 35 years, which I do believe is the number, the length of that contract. And not coincidentally, it's about the lifespan of the Maritime Link anyway. So there's a lot there. Anything else, Dennis, before we take a break?
No, consumers now can. And I'll be in touch with the ratepayers over the period of this hearing. This hearing will commence in a couple of months, but it will be June before we're into the final part of it. So I will try to inform consumers as much as I can. But Newfoundland Power has some explaining to do. They should tell ratepayers exactly how much more they're looking for in profit, how many more millions. People understand that, and they shouldn't be able to hide away and just say, "Oh, this is only going to cost you $1.50 a week or whatever, $1.50 a month." This soft sell is not appreciated. Ratepayers have nothing further to give to Newfoundland Power. Right now, they're giving them enough, so they're making $47 million in profit, nearly $4 million a month in this small jurisdiction. I mean, what else are they looking for, really?
We will invite President Murray on the show at his earliest convenience, and I appreciate your time as usual, Dennis.
Thanks very much, Paddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Dennis Brown is the province's consumer advocate. Let's take a break. When we come back, Graham is in the queue to talk about the Municipal Conduct Act and information regarding World Energy GH2. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Graham. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Just want to make a comment about what Mr. Brown said, and I want to agree wholeheartedly with everything he said. People have to sort of separate Newfoundland Light and Power, or Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland Hydro, which is the government, of course. And it's the submission before the board is for more profit. They want to increase their rate of return. Newfoundland Power, it's a private company, and they want a higher profit. I agree totally. They should not be allowed to have that. Okay, that's not my reason.
Okay.
But I will mention another previous caller who was saying that she couldn't get any information or a copy of the GH2 additional information that was submitted. I mean, it was only submitted 2 days ago. But I have read it. It is online, all of it. It's 503 pages, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But first of all, what I would like to talk about is the Municipal Conduct Act and the Stephenville Council. There were, firstly, let me say, it's elementary in any democratic society that you cannot be judge and jury in any complaint about yourself. Now, I submitted a complaint. There was lots of complaints submitted by other people. I have not seen them. I'm talking about mine alone. I submitted a complaint under the Act as it was the only vehicle really available to complain about it. And, of course, what happened is it went through the process, and I watched a deputy mayor who was one of the persons, along with the mayor, named in my complaint. So she had to be coaxed by the previous CAO, Colin Maddock, to say one word about the complaint, and that was dismissed. Now, when you see that, you sort of, shake your head and say, well, she was the subject of the complaint, and she's dismissing it herself. Well, that's elementary. You can't do that. However, there is a caveat to that, and that is that the only remedy to that, of course, is an appeal to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland. And, of course, that involves a lot of paper and lawyers, and I'm not interested in that. Let me just tell you what the complaint was about. It was about Mayor Rowe and regarding his behavior and cooperation and support and wasting money supporting the purchase of the airport YJT by Mr. Carl Diamond, who seems to be missing for the last few months. Nobody's heard of him, seen anything, or the mayor of Stephenville has been the self-appointed spokesman and no one else. So any information coming out comes from him, and that's a clear conflict in my opinion. Now, the Municipal Act doesn't contemplate, as it's written, investigating corruption or behaviors of mayors in deals like this. And unfortunately, it'll have to be, that stuff will have to be written into it. It'll have to be changed. Mr. Diamond, of course, as you know and you've talked about before, you can't get him on the show. Nobody seems to know where he is. He was able to obtain a $1.1 million mortgage provided by a lottery winner out in Saskatoon. Now, I'm wondering how much of his business did Diamond have to give up to get such a non-traditional mortgage. That's usually how these things work. Rose and Diamond together have put out basically lies and obfuscation over the past 2 years. The place has had no regularly scheduled airline service since January 21. Sunwing and Porter have supplied seasonal service in the summer with once-weekly flights. Neither returned in 2023. The airport's about as forlorn today as it was before it was sold. There's nothing is happening there. There's no indication from any airlines that any of them will return. Airlines know their markets pretty well, as you know, and are now consolidating in the way they operate. They won't provide a new service without partner investment, and you talked about that a lot in terms of the St. John's and Halifax competition for a UK connection. I think St. John's ended up with a weekly connection to Dublin. So things are changing in that business, and people have to be aware of that. It's not like it used to be. The airlines know these markets, and I've always said, and I've said for years, that if the airlines could make money here in Stephenville, they'd be here, and it's that simple.
Now, maybe with the potential uptick in economic activity, that might make some sort of business case for some frequency of flights. And in reference to the borrowing from a lotto winner, fair ball, but it doesn't necessarily have to come with an equity stake, because there's all sorts of lending arrangements that could be either a piece of the pie or simply a repayment schedule. So we have no earthly idea how that works. And I've tried repeatedly over the last number of weeks and months to have Mr. Diamond back on the show, and we'll keep at it.
Okay, that's good. Hello, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, I missed your response. Anyway, you need to find the guy. That's the first thing. Excuse me. But with GH2, the lady was, I think she was sort of upset that there was nobody there to open the door immediately, and that the printing is not done, and so forth and so on. And I'm very, very sure I've always had excellent cooperation anytime I've talked to them, and I've talked to them quite a bit. One interesting point it's in section, I think it's 2.4 or 5 of the additional information. There's 503 pages of it. Is that it states that the construction camp for the project itself, which will be for about 1,200 to 1,600 persons, that will be built on the eastern portion of the airport property. And not only that, a new wastewater treatment facility will have to be built for it, because the Stephenville facility can't handle the extra load, according to the document. And this means that more benefits will accrue to the new owner, in addition to a 20-year lease that they've already signed for laydown space. So the unfortunate thing that I see in this whole matter, and for the past 2 years, Tom Rose has been a non-voting. Tom Rose has been a non-voting town liaison member of the Stephenville Airport Corporation Board. Attended all their board meetings, and he supported Diamond to the hilt, finally resulting in a deal to sell Diamond. Now, this was a terrible decision by the board, and all the promises by Diamond so far have resulted in absolutely nothing. They've announced dated promises for 2 or 3 airlines coming to serve YJT in 2022, building a new terminal, all kinds of things like that, and they've never even applied for an environmental assessment, which all that stuff would require. So, to me, it's all garbage. And unfortunately, the board was, because of Tom Rose's, in my view, improper influence, decided to sell to this guy. All they had to do was wait, because the GH2 project was known to be coming, and any benefits now that accrue to that airport are going to go to Mr. Diamond. Not the townspeople, not the people of Newfoundland who supported the thing for nearly over 10 years with a line of credit. That's the only thing the airport operated on, was a line of credit. If they didn't have that, they'd have to close.
Yeah, and some transfers of money from the town itself.
Pardon me?
And some transfer of money from the town itself.
Well, not only that, the town applied for a $250,000 grant from EIT in 2021. They got this grant. $215,000 of it was to pay for an absurd contract with a company called WASCO, which is the Winnipeg Air Services Corporation, and it's essentially the Winnipeg Airport. And they spent $214,000 on it, paying out $50,000 at a crack to the airport to operate. And there was absolutely no benefit, no benefit to this airport. There's no service, no nothing. And the purpose of that contract was to renew and revitalize the airport. Just garbage. And the whole thing stinks to high heaven. And I think it's very unfortunate. Certainly, not a morally correct process in any way, shape, or form. No one even knew the airport was for sale before September 9th, 2021, when Mr. Diamond and Mr. Rose made the big announcement. I mean, it's absurd.
We'll keep chasing it as best we can. Graham, I'm late for the news, but I'll give you the final word.
Well, I'm just saying it's a terrible situation that exists, requires an investigation, and the Municipal Conduct Act, we hoped would get this kind of investigation, but the Act doesn't contemplate investigating corruption. So I'll just leave it at that. The whole thing needs to be investigated by authorities.
I appreciate your time. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we're going to talk with the passing of Rick Boland, and Jim Dim would like to respond to comments made by Minister Osborne. I guess on this program recently, there's a caller that wants to talk about exposure to mold. Don't go away.